What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. Now, we're going to pick up with New Mutants number 84, 85, and 86 as a way to wrap up our coverage over the Asgard story arc that takes place in New Mutant comics. Now let me give you a quick reminder of what's happening so far in this story. So we do pick up with our heroes in Asgard, and the reason why, because they were teleported over to Asgard by Doctor Strange. You see, Strange was able to realize that Danny Moonstar is currently being possessed by some kind of evil spirit, and the reason why? Because of Hela. You see, Hela has this master plan to attack Odin while he is in his Odin sleep. And what she did at first was taking over the minds of all the Valkyries, and that included Danny Moonstar, who was chosen to be a Valkyrie a while back. Now, when it came to our heroes, when they had arrived on Asgard, their first goal was to stop Hela, but unfortunately Hela is just too strong, and she also has the Valkyries on her side. Now when it comes to our heroes, the New Mutants, they were split up into two groups, where you have one group right now just trying to find a way to stop Hela in hell, while you have the other group trying their best to find somebody just as powerful as Odin to hopefully stop Hela. Now, something else I do want to mention is that Hela does have a powerful weapon that can kill off Odin while he is asleep. And this weapon was made by Eitri, the king of the Thors. And so thanks to Eitri, that weapon is now in Hela's hand. Everything has been set for her to actually win this battle. Now, at the end of our last video, we actually saw our heroes fall off a cliff, hoping to get away from Hela, but to also keep the sword away from her. But unfortunately, our heroes failed to keep the sword away from Hela, so she still has the sword. Now, when it comes to Hela, she was hoping to have her Valkyries be able to find the New Mutants after falling off the cliff. But unfortunately, the Valkyries cannot find them. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they were looking to find another path back into Hela's base in a lower section of the cliff. But when it comes to our heroes, they're trying to think of a new game plan on how they're going to stop Hela now, because now she has the most powerful weapon that can kill Odin in her hands. But now we have to jump over to the other group of heroes, and that would be Boom Boom, Warlock, and Himahari. Now when it comes to this group, they were able to find somebody known as Tawaz, who is just as powerful as Odin, to actually help them to defeat Hela. Now his real name is Buri, and when it comes to Buri, he was the actual founder of Asgard. But after finding Asgard, he just left it behind and changed his name to be Left Alone, to live a different kind of life. Now, you believe he would step in to actually help out our heroes, but he says no. And the reason why? The Fates. The Fates say that he should not be involved in this battle, that our heroes should be able to find a way to overcome this obstacle. Now their next goal is to find somebody who is just as powerful as Thor, who could possibly help them to defeat Hela, and that would be the three warriors. But the problem is, the three warriors are currently being held hostage right now by Queen Hela, the queen of the Sky Trolls. And so our heroes' next goal is to go out of their way to save the three warriors to get their help to hopefully stop Hela. Now we jump over to the three children of Volstagg. Now the last time we saw them, they heard the story about what Hela was trying to do. And so they went out of their way to help our heroes to find somebody, which was Tawaz, who is just as powerful as Odin, to hopefully use Tawaz to stop Odin. But unfortunately, they also try to warn everyone else in Asgard what Hela is actually up to. But nobody in Asgard believes them, and so their goal is to find Baldur, which they were able to do. Except when they do find Baldur, he's also with Karnilla, the queen of the Norns. And so when it comes to Baldur, once he hears what's about to happen, he knows he has to get involved. He has to help out to hopefully stop Hela. Now, something I should mention is that the last 3 issues of this story arc is actually tie-ins to Acts of Vengeance. Let me explain. So Acts of Vengeance was this massive crossover done by Marvel Comics in the late 1980s, early 1990s. It was a way for the heroes to fight against different villains they don't usually fight against. So for example, Magneto fighting against Captain America, or Spider-Man fighting against Graviton, Thor fighting against the Juggernaut, different kinds of villains. And so in our previous video, we saw the character known as Vulture beginning to break out of prison. And of course, the only heroes left to stop him are the 2 new mutants who are currently locked up in prison. You see, when it comes to Rusty Collins, he was the first trainee that was taken in by X Factor back in the early days of X Factor. And when it came to Rusty Collins, when his powers had manifested, he had burned a woman. And of course, he has to pay for that crime. But also because he left the Navy. And so they're all like, hey man, you got crimes on 2 different fronts here that you have to pay for. But while being in prison, we also see him seeing the Vulture, who is trying to get out of prison. Now, when it comes to Vulture, he is trying to break out another character known as Nitro. And when it comes to Nitro, he is able to release a huge amount of energy in a way of being kind of like an explosion. And so for Vulture, he wants to use that guy as a way to break out, but to also use that guy to cause crime across New York or possibly other areas in the world. Now for Vulture, he's just waiting for the right time. But when he goes back to his cell, we do see that somebody left behind, well, his wings, or a new version of his wings. Now, when it comes to Vulture, he realized it was most likely made by another character known as the Tinkerer, somebody who's well known in creating different kinds of things for different characters in Marvel Comics. Now for Vulture, it's not okay for the Tinkerer to basically duplicate his creation, his wings. And so with him being so upset by that, his first goal is to break out of prison, but to also get revenge at the Tinkerer for recreating his wings. Now, when it comes to Rusty Collins, he does see Vulture breaking out of prison, and for Rusty, that's not okay at all. And so we see Rusty also break out of his cell by using his ability, which is fire, to go after Vulture to hopefully stop him. And for me personally, I feel like this should be an easy battle for Rusty because it's just the Vulture. Just burn his wings off and call it a day. But now we have to jump back over to Boom Boom's group, where we do see them being able to save the 3 warriors from Queen Hela. Now, when I say save them, I really mean more of they're able to break them free, but then you have our heroes and also the 3 warriors talk to Queen Hela to figure out why in the world did they kidnap the 3 warriors for. And you have fellow soldiers of the Queen say, because the Valkyries who worked for Odin were going around kidnapping our people. Now remember, when it comes to Hela, she told the Valkyries to do that. And so when it came to the people of Queen Hela, they believed the Valkyries were working for Odin, not knowing the Valkyries are currently corrupted by Hela. And so once you have Queen Hela and her people over here, the actual truth, they're down to help our heroes and the 3 warriors to stop Hela from killing off Odin. But now we have to jump back over to our heroes in Hell. Now when it comes to our heroes in Hell, they just realized what Hela is about to do. Like, yes, they already knew that when it comes to Hela, her main goal is to kill off Odin. But here's the thing, Asgard is going to be on guard to protect their king. And so our heroes realize that Hela most likely is going to send one of her Valkyries away in the middle of the battle to kill off Odin. And who would it be? Danny Moonstar. And so for our heroes, now they have to make sure to stop their friend before she's able to actually kill off Odin. Now, I want to jump back over to Boulder and also Carnilla, and here's the reason why. You see, in a previous story, Carnilla, her people were turned to stone, and she tried her best to use all kinds of magic to hopefully turn her people back to normal. But unfortunately, nothing ever worked for her. But luckily for her, this time it does work. Just now with her magic. You see, you have Beery watching over Balder and also watching over Carnilla. And he realized that she is trying her best to turn her people back to normal or to allow them to actually move again. And so you have him use his magic to allow her people to move, but they're still stone. But now Balder has an army to help him defend Asgard from Hela. And so now the army for Asgard has just grown a lot. They are now able to withstand the attack of Hela. And the last page of this first chapter is Hela arriving to fight against the forces of Asgard. It's now time for the final battle. Now, getting into the next chapter, we do pick up with the New Mutants currently fighting against the forces of Hell, but of course they're fighting alongside with the forces of Asgard. It's one big heck of a battle taking place at the moment. Now, you do have the two groups being able to finally regroup with one another. Now, here's the thing, because you have the Hell group tell Boom Boom's group what they need to do, which is again, make sure that Danny does not kill off Odin. And so you do have our heroes try their best to stop her, but unfortunately, Danny is a tad bit too strong, and she also has other Valkyries on her side. But now we know what's the main goal for the New Mutants, to stop Danny, because if she's able to actually pull it off, well, that would be really bad for Asgard. Now we jump over to the prisoners of Hela. Now when it comes to the prisoners of Hela, you have Eitri being able to break everyone free by creating a key that allows him and the others to get out and join the battle. Now when it comes to Eitri, the guy who created the sword that Hela is trying to use, he tells his daughter, listen, I want you to go back to your mother and tell your mother that I was the one who had created this powerful sword that could kill Odin. But I also want you to tell her that I made sure to fight alongside with the others to make sure that sword was not used against our king. And so you have Eitri saying that most likely he's going to die to make sure that sword is not used to kill Odin. Now getting back over to the New Mutants, they're trying their best to actually stop Danny Moonstar from being able to get to Odin to use the sword. Now our heroes, they are struggling, but they understand what they have to do here. They have to make sure that she is not able to actually use the sword. Now in the middle of the battle, you have Eitri actually appear, but when he does appear, he's actually able to dent the sword. Now that is going to be somewhat important later on when it comes to this chapter, but is Eitri saying, no, I was not going to allow you to use my creation to kill off somebody who is very special to Asgard. And of course, he is talking about Odin. Now, when it comes to Eitri trying to stop Danny Moonstar, her flames actually do damage to Eitri. And so we're left to wonder in the possibility that he is going to die. But now we have to jump back over to Rusty Collins back on Earth, who is trying to use his abilities to stop the Vulture, but unfortunately he's having a hard time doing that because the prison guards are not trying to help him. Matter of fact, the prison guards believe that Fire Fist is also trying to escape, not realizing that he is trying to help them. Now you have Skid also join in the battle, and when it comes to Skid, she's also another member of the New Mutants. She has the ability to create a force field around her to protect her and other people who are also trapped inside the actual field. But you do have her join in right after Fire Fist does lose Vulture and Vulture being able to escape, but now all the guards are trying to shoot at Fire Fist. Now, getting back over to Asgard, we do pick up with Cannonball checking in on Eitri, who just taken a blow from Danny Moonstar. Now, when it comes to Eitri, he does inform Cannonball that he had put inside a flaw into the sword. This flaw is that once the sword hits somebody, it's going to break. But most likely, that person who is hit by the sword is going to die. It's Eitri saying, Cannonball, if you are able to take a blow, you might survive, but also the sword will also be broken. And on top of that, you'll save the life of Odin. And so you have Cannonball go out of his way to take a blow from the sword right when Danny Moonstar is about to stab Odin in the chest. And once he takes the blow, there is a huge explosion. And we're left to wonder if Cannonball is alive. But on top of that, is Danny Moonstar alive as well? Now, the final chapter is really more acts of vengeance rather than the whole Asgard story arc, and let me explain. So we actually do pick up with Vulture, and when it comes to Vulture, he did head over to the base of the Tinkerer to get revenge on the Tinkerer for duplicating his wings. Now, when it comes to the Tinkerer, he does inform the Vulture, hey man, listen, the only reason why I did that because somebody paid me money to actually do it. This mysterious group of villains are coming together and they wanted you out of prison and to go after another character known as Speedball. So now we know that Vulture was supposed to be part of the Acts of Vengeance group and he was supposed to go after another hero. But for Vulture, he's kind of like, why would I do that? Now I know that you are innocent, that you only made some wings for me because of the idea of being hired. I can now go back to my main goal, which is to use Nitro to cause havoc across the city. And that leads us back over to Skid and also Fire Fist. Now, those two characters, they're still trying to escape from prison, but their main goal is to head over to the courthouse because Nitro is about to go on trial. But here's the thing, they also know that Vulture is going to head there as well, and they're hoping to stop him, but at the same time, do it on cameras to help mutants down the road, to show that mutants are not really bad, that mutants could be great people if you just trust them. But at the same time, this is Fire Fist saying, we could also tell the world some of the dark secrets of Freedom Force. Now remember, Freedom Force was the brotherhood of evil mutants that were led by Mystique. But after a while, they had begun to work for the American government. And so after doing that, they were kind of like, hey, we are assigned to go after other mutants. But in previous videos, we kind of learned that they're doing some dark things behind the scenes for the government. And if word gets out, that could ruin their jobs, but also hurt the government down the road in many different ways. And we actually do jump over to the courthouse, and we actually do pick up with Nitro on trial. Now, when it comes to Nitro being on trial, we do see him right now in a container for a very good reason. Because again, when it comes to Nitro, he has the ability to release a huge amount of energy that could cause a huge explosion. So follow me here. And so what they did was they had put him inside some kind of container that constantly keeps him in stasis, some kind of gas in there to make sure he does not wake up and being able to use that ability to cause massive damage to areas around him. But when it comes to the Vulture, he is able to just break right into the courthouse, grab the container that's holding on the Nitro, and get the heck out of there. And so now Vulture has the one person that he wanted. Now, you do have Fire Fist and Skid both arrive at the courthouse, and they do begin to try to fight against Vulture, and to hopefully stop Vulture from being able to release Nitro. Now, while you have the two sides fighting against each other, unfortunately, when it comes to Vulture, he had already begun the process of releasing Nitro, really more the Tinkerer did, while you had Vulture fighting against Fire Fist and Skid. But as soon as they're done with the whole break break down the container, you have Nitro just pop right out. Now, when it comes to Nitro, he's very upset about the fact that he was locked away, and his goal is to get revenge against the people who had locked him away. Now, when it also comes to Nitro, he's not listening to Vulture. Vulture's all like, hey man, listen, it was me and Tinkerer who broke you free. We shall work together. But when it comes to Nitro, he's all like, dude, I don't know you, I don't care. Matter of fact, I'm gonna kill everybody in this area, including you, those heroes, and Tinkerer as well. And so you have Nitro begin to gather enough energy to release to cause a huge explosion. Now, when it comes to Nitro, he's about to release a huge explosion, but you didn't have Skid going out of her way to use her ability to create a force field around her, but also around Nitro as well, to contain most of the explosion. And matter of fact, she was the only person to be hit with the explosion. Well, really most of it. The other characters were hit as well, but not as much as she was. And matter of fact, she barely survived. And I thought she was going to, well, die, but she did not. Now, when it comes to Nitro, he says, well, you may stop one blast, but I'm gonna try again right now with another explosion. Except when it comes to Nitro, once he does absorb all the energy he needs to cause an explosion, his body does change into a completely different form, a form of energy. His molecules are changed as well. But once he does release that energy, his body goes back to normal. Except when it came to Skid using her abilities on Nitro earlier, it did something to him. And so once he tries to absorb all that energy again, his body does change form into an energy form. Except when he tries to release it, well, his body cannot turn back to normal, which then means he's not able to release the energy properly, which then just kills him. He turns into dust completely. It breaks his body apart. That type of energy ate away at his molecules. And so Nitro is gone. Our heroes were able to stop Vulture and stop Nitro. But now we have to jump back over to Asgard as we pick up with the New Mutants. Now when we do, it's the New Mutants currently recovering after the big battle. Everybody is okay, but you did have our heroes beginning to talk about the idea of going back home to Earth, back home to Midgard, except you have the Asgardians inform our heroes that there's no proper way home at the moment. Because remember, Asgard is currently in the negative zone. All proper ways to travel to Asgard and to other dimensions that are connected to Asgard have been completely lost at the moment. And so our heroes are just finding out that they are currently stuck in Asgard. Now, we do jump back over to Earth. We do pick back up with Rusty and also Skid. Now, these two characters are still recovering from their battle against Vulture, but also against Nitro. Now, you do have Freedom Force appear, and they are here to take our heroes back to prison. Now, here's the thing, because like I said earlier, when it comes to Freedom Force, they have been hiding things from the public. And so you have Rusty trying his best to speak up, but he keeps getting shut down by the different members of Freedom Force, and he is taken away without being able to tell reporters what he knows about this team that works for the American government. Now we are introduced to two new characters. The first is going to be Wildside. Now when it comes to Wildside, he is leading a group of characters known as the Mutant Liberation Front, and their main goal is to attack a facility, a government facility, as a way to say, you guys are holding Fire Fist and Skid against their will. Go ahead and release them right now. You have no right to actually hold them. Now, right after blowing up that facility, we kind of find out somebody's watching all these different things happening, and that person is Cable. We're getting our first look of Cable, and this begins the process of the New Mutants going away as the New Mutants, but being reformed as X-Force. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.